Welcome, Age of Vintage Society. A mainstay of 1950s and 60s cinema, Douglas was one of the classic Hollywood last surviving stars. Kirk Douglas, the intense muscular actor with the dimpled chin, who starred in Spartacus, Lust for Life, and dozens of other films, helped fatally weaken the blacklist against suspected communists and reigned for decades as a Hollywood maverick and patriarch. Why could Kirk Douglas owe women his entire career? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Before there was Michael Douglas, his father was dominating old Hollywood with hit film after hit film, whether you know him from 7 Days in May, Spartacus, Paths of Glory, Lust for Life or Champion. Kirk Douglas has cemented his place in the history of cinema, as well as being one of those rare people to live for over a century. When Kirk Douglas was a young actor, he took control of his career. Going against his parents' advice, he accepted the role of a ruthless, self-absorbed boxer in the small independent film Champion, which ultimately made him a star. Douglas earned an Academy Award nomination for the role, and from then on his dimpled chin, muscular build and explosive energy dominated the big screen. His granite-like strength and underlying vulnerability made the son of illiterate Russian immigrants one of the top stars of the 20th century. He appeared in more than 80 films, in roles ranging from Doc Holliday in Gunfight at the OK Corral to Vincent van Gogh in Lust for Life. He worked with some of Hollywood's greatest directors, from Vincent Minnelli and Billy Wilder to Stanley Kubrick and Elia Kazan. His career began at the peak of the studio's power more than 70 years ago, and ended in a more diverse, decentralized era that he helped bring about. He was a category unto himself, a force for change and symbol of endurance. In his latter years, he was a final link to a so-called golden age, a man nearly as old as the industry itself. In his youth he represented a new kind of performer, more independent and adventurous than Clark Gable, Spencer Tracy and other giants of the studio era of the 1930s and 40s, and more willing to speak his mind. Reaching stardom after World War II, he was as likely to play Katz, the movie producer in Bad and the Beautiful, the journalist in Ace in the Hole, as he was suited to play heroes, as alert to the business as he was at home before the camera. He started his own production company, Briner Productions, in 1955, when many actors still depended on the studios, and directed some of his later films. The most beautiful women in show business were irresistibly drawn to his chiselled good looks, yet his fellow male stars found him a volatile loner. He was also a rarity in Hollywood life, one of the few leading men who enjoyed a happy personal life. Born into what he described as brutal poverty, fame brought him wealth and success, yet all his life he championed the underdog, even at the risk of his own career. His name was known throughout the world, yet it was the impulsive invention of a pushy teenager. His father was an illiterate immigrant rag and bone man, yet he laid the foundation of a Hollywood dynasty. Kirk Douglas is not his real name, it's a name he created for himself in the early 1940s. He was born Isa Danielovich near New York City in 1916, the son of Jewish-Russian immigrants. His parents, Herschel and Briner, had left what is today Belarus to move to America and start a new life. Young Isa, nicknamed Izzy, had 6 sisters, and the family spoke Yiddish at home. Coming from a poor family, as a boy Douglas sold snacks to mill workers to earn enough to buy milk and bread. Later he delivered newspapers and claims to have worked at more than 40 jobs before becoming an actor. He found living in a family of 6 sisters to be stifling. I was dying to get out. In a sense, it lit a fire under me. During high school he acted in school plays and discovered, the one thing in my life that I always knew, that was always constant, was that I wanted to be an actor. In the 1930s, young Izzy had acted in some school plays and realised he wanted to become a professional actor, and as he matured the women began to notice him, including his English teacher, who seduced her young pupil when he was just 14. Unable to afford tuition, Douglas talked his way into St Lawrence University and received a loan, which he paid back by working part-time as a gardener and a janitor. He was a standout on the wrestling team. He was voted president of the class of 1939 and wrestled one summer in a carnival to make money. He graduated with a degree in English and won a scholarship to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City, where he decided to change his name. He was now going to be known as Kirk Douglas. During his first year at the Academy, Kirk became friends with an even younger aspiring actress named Betty Joan Persk. Young Betty Joan, still a young teen, would later admit that she had a serious crush on her 24-year-old classmate, but he was more interested in her friend, another actress by the name of Diana Dill. Nonetheless, Kirk and Betty Joan dated occasionally, and a warm and lasting friendship was created. He had no idea at the time that he is dating Humphrey Bogart's future wife. When the war broke out in 1941, young Kirk joined the Navy and married his girlfriend Diana, but what he didn't know was that he would resume his friendship with his classmate Betty Joan, only by now she'd changed her name too. She was Lauren Bacall. And Douglas's film career might have never started without Lauren Bacall's help. Douglas credited Lauren Bacall with helping his movie career. She was 17 and he was 24. Betty, as Douglas called Bacall, noticed that he was struggling to make ends meet and couldn't even afford enough food. She convinced her uncle to give her 2 thick coats that he wore for 3 years. By the time World War II ended and Douglas was honourably discharged from the Navy, Bacall was already in Hollywood to work on To Have and Have Not. It was her first movie and co-starred her eventual husband, Humphrey Bogart. Before Douglas went back to New York, he had dinner with Bacall and told her she will be a star. Of course, he was right. Douglas went back to New York and got good reviews for a play called The Wind is 90. In Los Angeles, Bacall told producer Hal Wallace to see the play because her friend was in it. Wallace was impressed and cast him in The Strange Loves of Martha Ivers. Bacall and Douglas eventually got to work together in a movie, 1950's Young Man with a Horn. In the case of Betty Bacall, I also lost my lucky charm, the girl who believed in me enough to talk Hal Wallace into giving me a Hollywood career. That was my first lesson in helping others without looking for thanks. I will continue to think about her whenever I put it into practice. After his first film with Barbara Stanwyck, after this debut screen role, Douglas never portrayed such a subservient figure again during his career. He would become known for playing dominating alpha males. Douglas played supporting roles in several notable films, including Out of the Past, Morning Becomes Electra, and I Walk Alone. He emerged as a star with an Oscar-nominated performance as a ruthless boxer in Champion. In this film, Douglas established a screen persona of a cocky, intense, self-absorbed individual. His on-screen charisma made him an audience favourite, despite numerous such roles in which he portrayed men with an abundance of tragic flaws. A robust, athletic man with a distinctive, much-imitated voice and a deeply cleft chin, Douglas worked with several renowned directors on some of the most highly regarded films of the 1950s. His energy did not flag as he grew older. He became a director, producer, and novelist. Between 1947 and 1986, Douglas would make 7 films with fellow film star Burt Lancaster. It was always believed that the two men were close friends, as Douglas famously insisted that Lancaster be cast in the film 7 Days in May. However, the claims were greatly exaggerated, partly by Douglas himself, who knew a good PR story when he heard one. Allegedly, their friendship was far more of a rivalry between two leading men seeking similar roles. Acting not only brought Douglas fame and fortune, but it also led him to his true love, or perhaps more accurately, it led his true love to him. The actor met his second wife, Anne Bidens, in France while shooting the 1953 film Act of Love. She had come to vie for the job of his assistant. Douglas became a leading box office star in the 50s and 60s, primarily known for serious dramas, westerns and war films, including his first starring role in the 1960 film Spartacus. In the decades following, he also gained recognition as a director, producer and author. Douglas's work in Spartacus as a Roman slave who leads an uprising is considered to be one of his signature roles. In making Spartacus, Douglas also challenged the practice of blacklisting certain Hollywood figures over their possible communist leanings. He hired blacklisted screenwriter Dalton Trumbo to write Spartacus. Trumbo, a member of the Hollywood 10, turned out a number of screenplays under various pseudonyms during the more than a decade he was blacklisted, but was later given full credit for his work, including 2 Academy Awards. Through it all, he was married to Ann Bidens. But the Douglases' lasting marriage didn't start with love at first sight. Douglas's 6-decade commitment to Bidens actually began with a slightly sour meet-cute in 1953. Already a successful movie star at the time, Douglas was adored by audiences, mostly women, for his recurring portrayal of the brave hero with the steely blue eyes. That's exactly why he was so surprised when Bidens rejected his initial request for a date. He said, "Come on, let me take you to the Lion's Den," Biden remembers. The Lion's Den was apparently Douglas's trailer, and there the actor asked Bidens if she wanted to join him for dinner. Bidens, however, declined his offer. "No, thank you. I think I'll go home and make myself some scrambled eggs," Bidens told the movie star, catching him completely off guard. "She was the most difficult woman I ever met," Douglas said in an interview. Though Bidens did go on to work as a publicist for Douglas, their relationship remained platonic until "I stopped talking about myself and began to listen to her," Douglas said. It was this willingness to change and show her that he was more than a one-dimensional silver screen hero that won Bidens over. Douglas proved to her that he was different than the typical Hollywood actor. When they first started seeing each other, the pair attended a charity gala held at a circus, where Douglas gladly helped scoop elephant dung while fully dressed in a tuxedo. "That's what got me," Bidens said. Life wasn't always perfect, of course. Douglas wrote openly about his affairs with actresses like Rita Hayworth, Patricia Neal, and Joan Crawford's daughter, Christina Crawford. "Kirk never tried to hide his dalliances from me," Bidens explained. This couple comes from a generation where affairs were often swept under the rug or blew up in a scandal. When Eddie Fisher cheated on Debbie Reynolds with Elizabeth Taylor, the trio became the talk of Tinseltown. Sometimes, as is in the case of longtime couple Marlon Brando and Rita Moreno, years of endured infidelity led to the demise of their relationship. But the Douglases have remained strong in their relationship, largely, according to Kirk, because of Ann's continued support. Biden's loyalty to her husband even saved his life. In 1958, Douglas was invited to fly on a private plane from Palm Springs to New York with director Mike Todd, Elizabeth Taylor's husband, to present Todd with a Showman of the Year award at the New York Friars Club. Bidens, who generally disliked private planes, insisted that Douglas skip the trip as she had a strange feeling about it. Her request led to an intense fight between the couple, but Douglas ultimately agreed not to go. Shortly thereafter, the radio news announced that Todd's plane had crashed, leaving behind no survivors. "She saved my life," Kirk said. Not only did Biden save Douglas's life, but she also saved his fortune. When the couple first began seeing each other officially in 1953, Douglas was oblivious to his own financial disarray. It wasn't until Bidens questioned his business manager that she found out the actor was essentially broke. Using the business skills she learned from her father, Bidens found someone to help Douglas invest his salary, saving him millions. Together the two became prominent Los Angeles philanthropists. Douglas and his wife have even provided Thanksgiving dinner for the homeless for years at the Los Angeles Mission, where he would get meals when he first came to LA and did not have any money. In 2004, the couple suffered a tragic loss when their youngest son, Eric Douglas, an actor and stand-up comedian, died of an accidental drug overdose at the age of 46. In addition to Biden's battle with breast cancer and Douglas's struggle with depression after suffering a stroke, the couple has stood strong beside each other over the years. Kirk remained active and continued to appear in front of the camera until his passing on February 5, 2020, at the age of 103. He and Olivia de Havilland were the last surviving major stars from the golden years of Hollywood. Douglas was one of the last great Hollywood stars who began their climb to fame at the end of World War II, and certainly one of the most defiant. "I don't need a critic to tell me I'm an actor," he once said. "I make my own way. Nobody's my boss. Nobody's ever been my boss." If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Kirk Douglas? The actor was one of the last links to the golden age of movies.